Dear Santa, how are you? I'm doing fine. Mr. Claus, I hope that you are well.
My Lord and Savior, Santa Claus, I have prayed to you every night and have made the weekly sacrifices as you so desire.
Santa, I've been very good this year. All of my YouTube videos have been uploaded on time and I've never skipped a week. Also, I've kept my ranting about the Death Watch to a minimum, even when our new supplement dropped and GW took away our special issue ammunition. Since I've had such a fun year painting and making videos, I wanted you to know that I do not want any presents this year. I simply have one Christmas wish. I assume that the pandemic has made the North Pole's economy pretty jank, and with that, my Christmas wish is that you do not give presents to any of my followers or subscribers. I'll take care of them this year. Your humble servant, your pal, Jacob.
Hey boy, you done with that weird letter to Santa yet?
Yes. And it's perfect. It's time to do some shopping. Okay, so the Warmachine community is all set. Space Marines are good to go. The Xenos are good. Everyone else, yep, looks good to me. Now let's see what my total is. Whoa! Okay, shouldn't be a problem. Just, okay, no problem. I will just check my bank account. I gotta stop that letter! Son of a bitch! What am I gonna do? Dear Jacob, your wish is granted. But I know that you won't be able to pull it off because you're so broke that you didn't even use a stamp when you sent me your letter. You just addressed the letter to yourself and marked it return to sender. That's called mail fraud. Listen, you have been a very good boy, besides the whole mail fraud thing, and I don't want you to screw this up for all of your awesome subscribers, so why don't you just make them special Christmas painting tutorials? It's all you've got, so don't screw this up. Your Lord and Savior, Santa. I got it. What's happening, hobby people? My name is Jacob from the Dry Paint Pot, and you probably can't tell because I haven't decorated yet, but it is officially the holiday season, and I am so freaking excited. So what that means is, beanie's out of here, and it is time for the Santa hat. Now, I'm still recording these videos off of an iPhone, and I can't see what I'm doing, so I hope this looks good. But I'll just have to cross my fingers. So, let's talk about what's been going on. Yesterday was my 1,000 follower giveaway over on Instagram. Big shout out to all of you for getting me there. Thank you so very much. And if you're not following me on Instagram, I highly suggest that you go and check it out because that's where I post all of my updates and show off my projects that I'm working on and everything else. So I've recently noticed that I paint a lot of Games Workshop products on this channel, and while the techniques that I use are very universal, I still feel bad for those of you out there who are painting models not made by GW. So what I've decided to do is dedicate each week in December to painting a mini not made by Games Workshop. And this is just my way to show all of you out there who don't paint GW products that you're not forgotten. Now this week's gift is for the Warmachine community. Now, Warmachine is a game made by Privateer Press. It's a war game, and I'm about to butcher everything that it is. I've only played the game twice. I don't have any Warmachine models, but I have a ton of friends who play. and they've told me all about it, so I'm just going to try to piece this together. So you have your unit, I guess, where you have like a warjack or a warcaster, and this person or whatever it is, this model is like the powerhouse of your army. They cast spells that like attack other models. They can like hex terrain. They can boost, their models. They can do a lot of really cool stuff. And magic plays a very large role in this game. So you have this warcaster, and you also have a few other models. I think that I played a 100-point game, and I had 3 models on the table. So if you don't want to carry around a bunch of models, or you don't want to buy a bunch of models, this is probably going to be the game for you. I mean, just like any other game, I think that it does have like a horde army that you can play, but again, every time I've seen it played, there's like 3 to 5 models maybe, sometimes like 10, but that's usually like max. So besides these warcasters, you've got these big old battle engines, you have smaller troops and artillery, and there's a lot of really cool races to play as. You've got humans, dwarves, elves, and I mean, it's just a very creative line. There are so many cool models for this game. Now, one thing I like to tackle real quick is this misconception that Warmachine is dead, that it is a dead game, but that is not true. The local game store that I was playing at had a very big Warmachine community, and those players that went to my game store, they would go play these tournaments that had so many people there. I mean, they would really pack it out. So Warmachine is not dead. Privateer Press is still updating the game. They're putting out new models all the time. I mean, it is very much alive. And also, saying that Warmachine is dead is like telling a guard player that the guard broke before Cadia did. Don't do that. It's not nice. And it didn't happen. Don't say that. So this tutorial is my first gift of the season. We're going to be taking a look at Alexia and the Risen, specifically some of the grunt skeleton boys that are in there, just like little foot soldier kind of guys. And I'm going to show you how I paint them up. Now, without further ado, let's get things started. I am very excited to be painting skeletons. Since I primarily paint Space Marines and Seraphon, it's not often that I get to paint old bones. Now, these are actually part of a large Warmachine commission that I'm working on, and that's one of my favorite parts of commission painting. It allows me to paint models that I normally wouldn't paint, and as much as I wouldn't mind owning some of these, I've got quite a tight hobby budget, so my Marines and Lizards take all my money. Okay, enough of me ranting, let's talk about how I tackled these guys. After a quick examination of the model, I noticed that there are many places where the bone is tangled up in the tattered cloth, so I decided to paint all of the bone first. I could paint the bone after I paint the cloth, but since the bone is in such tricky places, it's better to just do it now rather than tackling it later and possibly getting paint in any unwanted places. I started off by applying 2 thin coats of Screaming Skull to all of the bones. You can use gray or white on the bones instead, but I wanted the bone to look old and a bit aged. And once that was done, I moved on to washing all of the bone in Agrax Earthshade. I was sure to allow the wash to seep into all of the recesses and tried to avoid getting any of it on any other parts of the model. Most people don't think about this, but getting paint or wash on your primer can change how your base coat will look, and nothing good comes from a messed up foundation. Here's an example. Painting yellow is quite difficult. It's easier to paint yellow over a gray or a white base coat than it is to paint over a black base coat. If you're messy and get black paint on a place that you need to paint yellow, the coverage won't be even and your color just won't look right, so be careful and take your time. I next move on to painting the shoulder pads, remnants of pants, and the sleeve on his left arm with some corn red. Now here's a quick tip that'll save you some time. Try painting a model by color rather than working your way across the model. Some people will start by completely painting a model's head, then arm, and work their way through it piece by piece. The trouble here is that you're constantly switching between colors, and that slows things down, especially if you don't have a wet palette and you have to keep remixing paint. It's sometimes quicker to just take a second, look over the model, identify all the places where you use whatever color you're using, and go through it like that. Once the solid red base coat was done, I dry brushed a bit of Evil Sun Scarlet just on the shoulder pads. With Evil Sun Scarlet on hand, I did just a few edge highlights on the shoulder pad and the red cloth that was just painted. I started painting the other pieces of cloth with Celestra Gray, but quickly switched to Administratum Gray. Celestra would have done the job, but it was just a little too blue and didn't look great against the corn red. There really isn't much to say about this step. I just took my time and tried to be as neat as I could with the gray. With all of the main parts of this model painted, it was time to wash. I was tossing around the idea of using Nuln Oil gloss on the shoulder pads, but I quickly decided against it. These skeletons are meant to look old and gross, so I wouldn't imagine that their armor would have much shine. I settled on using classic Nuln Oil for everything except the bone that we of course already washed. Before I put the Nuln Oil away, I did a bit of spot washing. And for those of you who don't know, spot washing is the act of applying wash to a few specific places rather than an entire part of a model. To really darken up a few places, I spot washed the eyes, the mouth, and the ribs with the Nuln Oil. Once everything was darkened, I went back with the Administratum Gray and gave the cloth a few highlights. I tried to not go overboard here because I wanted the cloth to look fairly old and dirty. I then mixed a bit of white scar and finished up by doing some extreme highlights on a few sharp edges. Highlighting the bone was a similar ordeal. I kept it simple and didn't go overboard. Since the bone was washed in Agrax Earthshade, I first went back with some Screaming Skull and covered a few areas like the top of the skull, the hands, and legs. When you're doing this, I advise that you not use pure white scar and use your brightest highlight sparingly. The brightest I went was with about 90% white scar and 10% Screaming Skull, and I only used this mix above the eyes, above the mouth, and on the front of the leg in a very thin line. I really don't have to explain the next steps. I just painted the remaining armor with Brass Scorpion and the chainmail with Ironbreaker. It's as simple as that. What I would like to bring up though is the fact that you probably noticed the second skeleton in the background of my shots. I was able to knock out 2 of these in a single sitting. That's how time efficient this routine is. It took me less than 4 hours to paint these 2, so a single skeleton should take you less than 2 hours to complete if you follow this tutorial. The very last thing that we need to paint is the skeleton's single shoe. For this, I just applied 2 thin coats of Rhinox hide, and it was done. For the finishing touches, I applied a wash of Nuln Oil on the silver chainmail and Seraphim Sepia on all of the brass. At this point, if you're following along with this tutorial, you just need to base your model to match the theme of your army, and you're done. I'd love to give a massive shout out to my patrons Leandrist, Che Phillip, CK, The Dark Path, Came From the Moon, and $2 Sucky Sucky. Thank you all so very much for your support. Of course, you know that I can't do this without you, and it means the absolute world to me. So if you'd also like to help support the channel and become a patron, check out the link to my Patreon down low. And if you'd like to just hang out and talk about the hobby, I'll drop a link to my Discord down low too. Be sure to tag any of your posts both on Instagram and Facebook with the hashtag #TheDryPaintPot because I pick my favorites each week and I feature them in my upcoming videos. Now wash your brushes, clean your paint pots, and keep on painting.